Good afternoon, we are now live.
Good afternoon and welcome to this new session of the webinar series of the FTTH Council Europe. I'm Vincent Garnier, the Director General of the Council, and I am very happy to have you with us this afternoon for a very interesting session titled Conquering the Rural Broadband Challenge. The session is sponsored and organized by the FTTH Council member IQGeo. And before I introduce you to our speakers today and to the topic, maybe more in detail, I will share some housekeeping item. Maybe John, if you could move to the next slide. Yeah, we still have quite a few attendees reaching us, but I think these few slides will give them time to join us. So maybe a few words about the FTTH Council for those who are not familiar with the organization. We are a non-profit organization founded in 2004. Our objective or mission is to promote full fiber network as a sustainable and future-proof connectivity for Europe. We organized many events, the FTTH conference as a physical event, and this series of webinars. We also produce a lot of pieces of information in terms of technology, market research, all related to the deployment and adoption of full fiber networks in Europe. Next slide, please. So this webinar today is part of a series of webinars we are organizing approximately once a month. They give to industry expert possibility to look at the FTTH market from a specific angle. And so registering to this webinar, you will also be, if you accepted that, receiving a further invitation for the session we're going to have in the next future. Next slide. We will record the session and give you access to the full replay of this session via an email you will receive after this session. So the session is recorded, you will have access to that, and we will also share the deck which is used today together with that link to the replay via the thank you email you will receive at the end of the session. You are very much encouraged to ask questions. To do so, you need to use the control panel, which you must have seen popping up on your desk. And there is a question section where you can type your question. We'll do our very best to handle most of the question during the last part of this webinar. And if in case we are not able to cover the question, this question will be forwarded to IQGeo, and I'm sure they will contact you and provide you with the answer to the specific question which wouldn't have been addressed during the Q&A part of this session. So with that, I can see that we have more and more attendees joining us. Maybe we go to the very last slide of my part, John. And that's the opportunity for me to introduce really the theme of the question and our speakers. We focus on challenges facing rural fiber deployment. And what is very interesting to see, and that comes clearly from the studies of the FTTH Council Europe, is that FTTH coverage in rural area is still lagging behind. There is a gap of 20 points between the average FTTH coverage in Europe and the coverage we measure in very low density areas, which means that it's more difficult, it requires specific effort, and there are, as we will see today, some operators and some technology leveraging a specific model and specific approach to make deployment of fiber in rural area very much possible. So I hope you will learn a lot from this session, which will try and explain how to optimize rural fiber deployment, how to streamline planning and construction workflow, how to build a multi-skilled field team, and how to support remote location with mobile software as well. To go through this topic, I'm very pleased to be joined by John Talaton, who is Sales Director at IQGeo, and John will explain more about his company and the services they bring to the market. And we also have with us Gareth Carter, who is Commercial Director at Alncom, a British operator really focusing on ultra-rural area in the northern part of Britain. So I guess the floor is yours. I will join you towards the end of the session to manage and moderate Q&A.
Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you, Vincent. And so welcome everyone to Conquering the Rural Broadband Challenge with myself and with Gareth. And, you know, to start with, I mean, IQGeo, we're a supplier of specialist geospatial software to the telecoms and utilities industries. And the software is only meant for those who are building or constructing and operating networks. So it's not a generic GIS type product. It is a very specific suite of software. And you know, we are often asked, we talk to many companies, as you might expect. And over the last 3 years or so that I've been with IQGeo, we've talked to many of the UK altnets, as you know, probably across Europe as well. It's a very growing community. We're well over 100, maybe 150 alternative network providers in the UK now. And we've talked to many of them over the years, and there's a set of recurring themes and challenges that come up. Whether it's rural or whether it's urban, often they are the same, but there's obviously some very specific things that relate to rural builds, which we'll cover today, which are doubly difficult types of challenges. And one of the things that we're constantly asked, the first thing we're usually asked is there a single digital environment that we can operate within? Is there some software that we can use that covers our whole life cycle from start to finish? And that's one of the things that IQGeo specialize in. And just to talk through that a little bit, starting with the planning and design side, when we often talk to companies, especially when they're starting out, they want to make sure that they've got a supporting technology platform for things like the planning and design aspects that will scale with them as they grow. And they often have a profile of starting small, but then gaining investment and then ramping up really quite quickly. And so therefore, what we've done at IQGeo is we have all the tools and the software to start with a manual type of planning and design. But we also have built into the software the automated planning from ComSoft. So within the same single environment, you can start small and then grow and accelerate your designs and have all the other supporting technologies as you grow and scale as a company. One of the things that's very important here in the UK, and I know there's similar initiatives across Europe, is what we call physical infrastructure access from Openreach. So this is access to the duct and pole information that you get from British Telecom or Openreach. In order to try and accelerate the build programs, it's opened up to the altnet communities. And across Europe, I know there's the ATI, or Access to Infrastructure Initiatives, that probably does something very similar. One of the things that almost every company that we talk to wants to do is they want to be able to interact digitally with the APIs that Openreach have set up. And so we have a PIE module, as we call it, within our software that allows you to access the records from Openreach and download into IQGeo the duct and pole information you might want to use. And that's usually the first step at which the operators decide to take the information out into the field, because they want to verify that the duct and pole information they see is suitable for their build. And they also want to make sure that they understand if any work needs to be undertaken. Sometimes the ducts get silted up, for example, and they need to be able to advise Openreach to do some work. So what we've done is create that module to be able to take that data out into the field and do some field verifications. Once you've done that, typically you would bring that information back and then use that in your designs and refine your designs perhaps into a lower level design to be able to go on and support the construction process. And once again, at this point, typically the information is created as job packs and given out to either contractor companies or your own work crews. But also, one of the things that many companies want to do is they want to do away with the paper stage of that and do everything digitally. And so once again, within the same environment, all the information on your detailed designs can be given out into the field on tablets or phones, but typically tablets for the detail. And then be able to interact with the software in a way that allows you to provide evidence of what's been built, so perhaps photographs, for example, and or mark up the designs in case there's been any last minute changes. And what that means is that, again, in this digital workflow, you get back the as-built outcome directly back into your core IQGeo inventory to allow you to go on and operate and maintain that network, but also to release the premises to your sales organization to be able to reduce the time to revenue. And so I mentioned PIE in there. There's also quite a lot more to this OpenReach PIA, apart from just downloading the data and viewing it. And they've added a number of APIs, digital APIs, to their portfolio. This is OpenReach. And we have now added to our portfolio as well things such as notices of intent, so NOIs as they're known here in the UK, which is the process which network providers have to go through in order to advise OpenReach of what infrastructure that they actually want to use, kind of reserve it in a way. And that's the whole process. And we're also now going on to add, there's a particular form if you have a duct blockage, for example, or you need to advise OpenReach some work that might need to be done. There's a thing called an A55 form, which we're now implementing as well. And so over the next 6 months or so, there's another whole set of items that are coming into our PIA module, which will help the UK altnet community run a far more automated process and a digital process with things like OpenReach. And as I mentioned, excuse me, one of the important things is to empower field crews and take that network to the field. And of course, that's something that we've touched on in the workflow, and you'll hear a lot more about that when Gareth explains what Alncom do. But it's a bit more than that, because everyone, whether you're in the office or in the field, and if you're connected, it gives you a set of situation awareness so you can actually see what's going on. So for example, you can see the progress of build at any point in time, which is very useful across the whole organization. And we find that in today's modern world, especially the younger generation, and I can say that, are coming in with expectations of how applications work. They really have that sort of commercial view of how easy applications should be to work with, and we've spent a lot of time at IQGeo trying to ensure that that's exactly how our software operates, and that it's very familiar when they see it. It embeds things like Google Maps and Street View and so on, and so it's a very familiar environment for people coming in to use the commercial software. And ideally, the whole thing is to be able to do everything completely digitally, as I say, and get it right first time. So throughout our webinar today, we have a couple of poll questions for the audience, just to give us an idea for those of you who are building networks out there, whether you're operating mostly in urban areas, in rural, or perhaps a mix of both. Perhaps if I can ask the poll to run.
Yeah, John, I think the poll is now open. I would definitely encourage you to answer the question directly, and maybe to rephrase where are you deploying fiber networks, urban areas, rural area, or a mix of both. Let's maybe give a couple of seconds more for the audience to raise their view. And John, what would be your guess? Let me put you a little bit on the spot.
My guess would be that because of the billing of the rural nature of the webinar, that I'm hoping we'll see a very large contingent of rural interest.
Okay, okay. So it's hope more than prediction.
Yes, I think so.
Okay, well, I think I'm not sure everybody has responded. I think I see 55% of the attendance, but maybe not everyone is in the position of answer. So I will close the poll because I think the results are getting now more or less stable. And I will share the results. And actually, predictions were not that correct, John. 60% have a mix of both urban and rural area. Mostly rural, nevertheless, is 26% and 17% being mostly urban. So I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Vince. I mean, it's not surprising. The reason for that, I guess, is that many of the companies that we talk to are not solely rural. Yeah, they often operate in poorly served areas, which can be relatively urban as well in terms of towns and so on. But they also then expand into the countryside from those areas. So actually, that's a very good result.
Excellent. So I think I closed the result, and you can carry on with the next slides on your deck.
Great, thank you so much. A few words from me about our customer Alncom. Alncom have been with us now for just under 3 years. And as it says on their website, it's a snapshot from their website here. They are the rural broadband experts, which is fantastic, and they specialize in bringing broadband to locations that, as it says there, that other telecom providers fail to get to. And so they have a sort of wonderful outlook on life up in the northeast of England, and they team up with a lot of the communities there and the community organisations. So in particular, this one from Northumberland, where, as you can see, the comment is that they're always keen to find solutions for these rural communities and are always professional, enthusiastic, and keen to help residents and businesses. And I think that will come across when you hear from Gareth, because they're really embedded at the heart of their quite wonderful area. And for those of you that don't know the geography necessarily of the northeast of England very well, they're based in Alnwick, which is right up there on the northeast coast, north of Newcastle upon Tyne and just south of the Scottish borders. They are alongside a very beautiful stretch of coast. The previous slide there had the beautiful Bamburgh Castle on it, but also right on the edge of the a national park, the Northumberland National Park and the Kielder Forest Park. So an extremely beautiful area. And, you know, a few words for me before I'll hand over to Gareth, I guess. You know, one of the things that we saw in Alncom was that they really did recognize that digital divide that you commented on, Vincent, at the start of the presentation between the urban and rural areas. And as I said, they have a very beautiful but a challenging area with some really difficult to reach communities and businesses. And they have a lot of tourism, and there's a lot of holiday communities and so on out there. And of course, there's an expectation, as you and I going to a holiday house, for example, that you will have an internet connection when you get there. And much of that relies on Alncom in this area, because many of the parts of the region are very poorly served. But Alncom rose to the challenge with wireless and now full fibre connectivity. And as part of that, they needed, of course, some, and this was part of their early conversations, they needed the right supporting technology to be able to operate very effectively and efficiently from design and construction all the way through to operation. And they have a great philosophy, and it says on their website again that they like to get it done and leave no one behind, which is fantastic. I hope that applies to the work crews in the field as well. And they also have, again, a wonderful turn of phrase. On the website, it used to say, run a website from a wood, live stream from a stream, or playing Minecraft from a mountain, it's all possible with broadband from Alncom. So without promoting you too much, Gareth, I'm going to pass over to you now and let the audience now hear from the rural broadband experts.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon, everyone. So Alncom, we were founded in 1983. I joined the company 15 years ago when we were just a computer game shop, just the two of us, Stephen Pinch and the MD and myself. We started to do IT support for businesses in rural Northumberland who demanded better connectivity for online services, and we expanded to become a rural WISP, utilising the government's rural voucher scheme, serving over 1,000 customers. In 2020, this evolved into an FTTP network, and we started rolling out fibre from there. One of the biggest landowners in Northumberland, Northumberland Estates, they recognised the contribution we were making to the rural economy and wanted to be part of Alncom, so became one of our investors, along with Lord James Percy. All our staff, they're all local, come from varied backgrounds. We've got plumbers, chefs, electricians. We've got a variety of staff. But Alncom, our main focus, we're very community focused company. We get heavily involved with local communities when building our networks. We want communities to ask us to build to them. Next slide, please, John.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. And I think that's absolutely key. I mean, being close to the community, and it's great to see that you've got such a range of people, from chefs to electricians and whatnot. So I guess your own maintenance and catering's pretty well covered.
Yeah, staff barbecues work very well.
Oh yes.
So Alncom, we currently cover from the borders of England and Scotland down to current County Durham, which covers some of the most rural locations in the UK. Next slide, please, John. So before we used IQGeo, all our network planning was done on paper and Google Earth, using the OpenReach portal to work out assets from the PIA network. Basically what we can do to for the build. Our very first network build was actually designed and built on the fly. This worked relatively well when we were building small networks, but it became very complicated when doing multiple builds. By using IQGeo, this has allowed us to actually monitor the build progress from our office, as it's a live system. So all our changes are updated in real time. Job packs are now created from IQGeo, which means no more paper, and we can easily generate reports so the fibre build is fully auditable. Because obviously being in rural Northumberland, the mobile broadband signal is very poor. All our job packs are downloaded and available offline on iPads for engineers, and then they're synced at the end of the day, updating all progress and modifications. And next slide, John.
So a couple of, one question, if I may, around that then. So, I'd highlighted and you mentioned there about the mobility aspects of the software, and you said about taking it into the field. So what does that do for you crews, and what does it do for you in the field then? Does it, give you that ability to not worry about, that everything you're doing is being recorded?
Yeah, so before we actually before we started using iPads in the field, obviously it was all paper, and in rural Northumberland in the winter, it's not great, and we found lots of bits of missing paper, so it wasn't a full picture of the network design for our engineers. So that was one of the reasons why we switched to the iPads. It's all saved on the iPads, and the guys can work from the iPads and make changes as they go. And
I guess in what I'd call the olden days, then when we were using paper, just having to bring that back soggy, wet or otherwise, and then being able to try and update records just wasn't really an efficient way of working.
Not at all, because obviously when it's miserable weather outside, trying to update a piece of paper with pen and ruler and what have you, it doesn't come back as it should do. So it was it was quite hard really to do that, but the iPads have a bit of a game changer, to be fair.
Great, thank you.
So this is essentially how we used to do network build. It was all on spreadsheets, all our splice diagrams, all done through Excel and pieces of paper. Next slide there, Sean. Then this is how it's all done now. So all splice diagrams are recorded through IQGeo, and these are all visible on our engineers' iPads, so splice engineers can just work through them as they go, and it's all saved, and any changes required can be changed and updated at the office.
Excellent.
Sorry, John.
Okay.
So Alncom, what makes us different of our ISPs? Alncom are an innovative in our network design architecture. Apologies. We only use the best equipment, testing everything before we implement it, and we adapt existing technology. What Alncom done a short while ago, we strengthened our senior operations team, and so Alncom now we have our own build training facility. So we recruit all local people from many different backgrounds, but we're able to retrain them in-house, creating a highly effective homegrown labour workforce, building networks to the highest standards. We promote from within and optimise our talent, guarantee the core values of Alncom are not lost.
Sorry, go on, Gareth. I was going to ask you a question, but I'll do it at the end.
We believe by empowering individuals, you get employees that will go the extra mile. As a fibre build in rural Northumberland, it's not always fun. This became very, very real when after Storm Arwen, when all our employees volunteered to come in on a Sunday to get our customers back online. After Storm Arwen was one of the biggest storms the UK have had for a while. So after Storm Arwen, our networks were down to 11% operational after the storm on a Sunday morning. We had them back up to 80% by Sunday afternoon, 90% in less than a week after the storm, leaving only those relying on OpenReach poles still offline. We then bypassed the OpenReach poles to get everyone back a week later. Just as well, really, because the OpenReach poles actually were down for several months. So, you know, after a week, we managed to get all our customers back online, and that was by putting new poles in and bypassing the existing poles. Because of our multi-skilled staff and IQGeo, we were able to pinpoint the issues before leaving the office and had a solution in place very quickly. One of our suppliers, Adtran, they visited us recently. Couldn't believe how far we'd pushed the known limits of their equipment. And because of our history, Alncom have actually built very close relationships with many landowners in Northumberland and Durham, which makes getting wayleaves a simple and quick process for ourselves, as we've already got master wayleaves in place.
I think that was one of the things that, and having met some of your team as well, Gareth, you know, this thing about staff being multi-skilled is one of the areas that does make you quite unique. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on, and you mentioned your sort of training academy as well, which is great, but the whole multi-skilled nature of things. I wonder if you could elaborate on that a little bit, because I think that does make quite a difference.
Yeah, so all our staff, we tend to get a lot of our staff are very young, I guess. So they've been in certain trades, and yeah, when they've sort of applied to join us, we look for guys that will you know, go the extra mile, are very keen and enthusiastic, because they're the guys who are going to you know, pull it out the park really when required, when you're up against it. When the weather's really bad and you've got an issue, or you know, you've got a time limit on a build, and they happen to work late into the night. They're the guys who are going to complete it for you.
Yeah,
So,
and I guess the thing about being multi-skilled is the fact that you can, you know, get it done once. When you send them out, you know, you can rely on them to be able to do each other's roles as necessary, and be able to just get it done in the most efficient and effective way, I guess.
yeah, exactly. So our engineers, obviously, if we can basically send one engineer out and he can do multiple tasks. It doesn't need any revisits. It doesn't need you know, extra engineers or anything like that. One guy is skilled to do multiple tasks and you know, complete a job.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, guys. Yeah. Next slide.
And I have to say, I do like the range of wonderful vehicles and equipment that you have. This one looks quite fun.
Yeah, so we've got lots of obviously, being where we are, the weather can deteriorate pretty quickly in Northumberland, especially over the winter. So we've got a variety of vehicles it's mainly for servicing our network, because in the winter it gets quite, you know, hairy, and we've got lots of different 4x4s that can get us where we need to get to without getting stuck. So so basically, what a rural fibre build in Northumberland. So the majority of Alncom fibre builds, they actually started off as a wireless network, but by utilising wireless technology, we're able to connect customers fast, but then follow it up with the fibre build. This allows us, basically, because there's not a huge amount of planning required with obviously building a wireless network. If a customer comes to us and wants a connection, and obviously we can justify it from a cost angle, then we can connect them straight away onto our wireless network, and then, you know, plan and get the right way leaves and what have you placed. It just gives us that little bit of time to build a network to a high standard, which obviously everyone benefits at the end of the day. One of our recent builds actually was to build a full fibre network covering over 30 kilometres of remote countryside, covering over 18 villages and hamlets, but by employing every method possible to deliver a fibre infrastructure. We cross rivers, fields, verges, moorland, and by installing new telegraph poles, plough and armoured cable, all via our remote controlled track ploughs, ducting along the verge using blown fibre. The project was all managed by obviously state-of-the-art offline mobile software that helps us to deploy, capture and maintain the fibre network. Alncom, we only use the best software technology, equipment, fibre materials, such as IQGeo, Prismium, Adtran and Corning. So on completion of this rural fibre build, we've made a total of 669 ready for service premises, and as of March 2023, we've had a 37% take up on that rural build. So part of that, we actually we overcame many extreme rural challenges, installing infrastructure over 30 kilometres of backhaul cable across the remote Northumberland countryside. This included narrow 60-mile-per-hour roads, rivers, historical bridges, places of significant interest, amongst many more challenges. But by liaising with the National Parks, Forestry Commission, local council, landowners, we were actually able to navigate through the difficult and challenging terrain and successfully provision ultra-fast fibre across a vast area, not missing anyone along the way. One of the properties we actually connected was Linnet Lodge, which is owned by Lord James Percy, and one of the best shooting lodges in the UK. Is one of the final cluster properties that we converted to fibre. Linnet Lodge, so over actually 10 kilometres from our source, and is found in one of the most rural locations in Northumberland.
Well, that's quite amazing, and I guess I mean I love the photography. And I'm always looking at your websites and your blog posts on LinkedIn because you have some great imagery of the area and the builds that you're doing. And I'm also very intrigued by the remote control tractors that you use. Now I noticed this one here, you know, going through a heavily wooded area. That must be really quite difficult with tree roots and all that kind of activity. That must be really quite hard. So I guess I'm kind of wondering, are there any sort of special considerations, network considerations that that you have when you're doing this kind of work? And I'm thinking here about, you mentioned about access, and we can see the trees there and everything, but I'm thinking here about the, you know, the robustness of the network, and in particular, I mean, how do you get things like power in very remote areas?
So a lot of our power, we use village halls because they're a community hub. Basically, what we do, we put fibre into the village hall, and then we use the village hall as our source cabinet, and sort of bring it out to the community from there. But by doing this, basically all our hubs, you know, we've got battery backup systems fitted to every cabinet, and they've also got gas power generators to back them up.
Gas rather than diesel?
Yeah, so gas, whereas diesel have a sort of a 6-month shelf life, gas can actually stay in a generator until needed. So normally you won't need to use a generator until there's power cuts, which is normally in the winter. So you're talking 12-month periods, whereas diesel would go off in that time period.
So practical thinking. And also, I think you did mention at one point that there's a program of them becoming solar as well, so even greener.
Yeah, so Northumberland, in Northumberland, they're actually starting to roll out putting solar panels on village halls with battery backup. So essentially our hubs are going to be sort of a mini power plant within communities. So we really shouldn't have problems with power.
So. I mean, that's a fantastic example of how it ties together all the aspects of the work that you do. I think that's absolutely tremendous. So, so shall we move on to the next slide?
Yeah.
So we have another poll. I guess, Vincent, do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I will launch the poll and maybe take that opportunity to also remind our audience that we accept and welcome questions that you can pose using the question box. I can see that you have read and understood how the poll works, so no need for further explanation. How important is offline mobility to your field crew? And I can see already many of you voting, and it goes from not important to extremely important. So same question, Steve. Okay, what would be the percentage of extremely important, you guess?
Well, from my, I would say extremely important. It's one of those things that it can be quite, depending on the life cycle stage that you're at in the growth of a company. Often they start with, you know, making do, but as you scale and grow, as we said earlier, it becomes an essential activity, and it's also very surprising how many not spots there are in urban areas as well. So being able to work with that offline capability, I'd say would be very important.
Okay, let me see. I think we had more than half of the audience having voted, and it seems to be now stabilizing. So I will close the poll and share the results. You're not too far off, John, this time. 32% think this is extremely important. 39% think this is important, leaving us with 25% neutral and hardly just a handful of respondents thinking this is not really important. So yeah, clearly offline mobility is very important.
Fantastic, thank you for that. That's great.
All right, let me hide and give you the floor back. And once again, please ask questions so we can address them in a few minutes.
Sure, absolutely. So, well, I mean, thank you to Gareth for such a wonderful resume of some of the great work they do up in Northumberland and some of the challenging conditions and the things that they face there. It's very enlightening to hear. There must be a tremendous amount of work that goes into doing things like the liaison with not just the communities, but the the landowners, as we said, for way leaves and so on. So, a whole lot of activity that's often unsung. But obviously results in very high quality internet connections for the community and for the remote businesses. And I'm very pleased to hear, of course, that IQGeo are a key part of that journey, and that we're able to provide them with the kind of technologies, kind of supporting technologies across their whole business that really helps. And we asked the question there about field mobility, and we think it's one of the things we do rather well. We spent a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that our customers can just get on with the job. They don't need to worry about it if it's disconnected and you're out in the wilds, either that or in not spots in urban areas, that it really doesn't matter. And at the end of the day, you have that ability to work and just get on with the job fundamentally. So so we're very pleased and very proud of our customers and the sort of work that Alncom does. So just in wrapping up, and I guess obviously I'd like to say thank you to the entire audience for your attention this afternoon. I hope you found it very interesting. And we are very happy, Gareth and I, to perhaps answer any questions that you may have.
Well, John, and maybe that one question from Alfonso, asking in a very specific way if fiber test results that Alncom is doing are stored inside the IQGeo system.
Yeah, so we started to store all our tests. It allows the full audible trace from engineers who completed the test to the actual test results. So that's all stored in IQGeo.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's just maybe to elaborate on that, if I may, a little bit. I mean, things like documents and so on are a key part of the sort of information that can be stored in the product. But more than that, also things like photographic evidence. And it might be that you do inspection, so it might be that there's some recording of things like damage and other things like that. So there's a whole range of documents, photographs, and other elements that can be stored within the system as well. So yeah.
Okay, and maybe a related question, which is a little bit technical, related to your system. Can we export all design items and considered as part of an inventory database?
Yes, we have a range of standard formats that we use to exchange data. We also have a particular structured data format that we can use. So yes, that's definitely something that can be done to be able to get data in and out of the system. I guess the majority of our customers, they will often bring data in, sometimes from the design aspects. But usually they'll do a lot of the design work within the software and then run with it. Once they get either data in or have designs in the software, they'll run with it all the way through the entire life cycle within that one environment, because that's one of the things that they were looking for from a software product.
Okay. I mean, thanks. We're receiving tons of questions. I have difficulty to keep up with everything coming on the box, but I have two questions which are maybe for Gareth, related to the specificity of deployment condition. One was related to the percentage of your installation which are aerial, maybe versus in trenches. What do you use? Do you bury the cable underground, or?
So all the fibers buried in the ground. To be fair, we're very fortunate that we've got very good long relationships with all the landowners in Northumberland. It allows us great land access, and part of this we use a lot, bury a lot of cable.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, just again to add to that, if I may, I think that's quite important in the design aspects of the network, because as we heard from Gareth, when there was a storm and you know, that would obviously affect, and we're seeing more natural you know, occurrences of things like storms and flooding and so on. And many of those things obviously will affect overhead infrastructure, not solely, of course. Again, flooding would affect, but you've got, you know, those kind of increasing environmental effects now. And so the ability to have options, I think, is quite important.
I have an interesting, more maybe business-related question, but that can be directly connected, you know, to the techniques used for deployment, which is, you know, from which cost per premise do you consider that you don't have a business case and that it cannot fly and that maybe it stopped being interesting? And maybe an associated question about maybe government funding, which could complement potentially purely commercially driven investment. So how do you maybe, you know, reduce costs as much as you can, but where the threshold where you need financial support to make the business case fly?
So I'm building and designing a fiber build. We'll look at a couple of things really. So one's obviously the funding. Now we do use government vouchers, which does help in the build. But the thing with rural builds, once you build to a hamlet and you know, you've got customers on your network, chances are it's cost you a lot of money to build to that network. Chances are another ISP isn't going to be building to that network, to that hamlet, because it's such a hard build. So the customer will be with you for a long, long time, as long as, you know, you offer them good prices. There's a very slim chance that they're actually going to leave you. And a lot of our customers, you know, they've stayed with us for a long time. Even when another fiber company comes in, like us, just because of cost basis, you know, they've got a good service. Yeah, no one else is going to do it.
And I guess that, I mean, that you what you're saying there, Gareth, is that, you know, you're sticky, your customers are sticky, and I guess you know, that's a great thing, because it does affect things like property prices. You know, I know if you're looking at purchasing a property, you look at the main utilities, and you know, an internet connection is a key part of it. So you know, that's very, very important.
Definitely.
I guess you must have a very high take up for every area you cover with your fiber.
Yeah, so all take-ups, yeah, we're looking at over 30% normally for rural builds at least. Okay.
Maybe back to a more technical question. I have someone, Scott, asking, is the infrastructure you lay in the ground to the same specification as BT, or can you deploy a suitable alternative, for example, a fiber manhole or chamber?
Yeah, so everything we install is to Openreach standards or higher, normally higher, to be fair. Alncom have very high standards ourselves. We only want to build the best networks. So yeah, it's Openreach standards or higher.
And I guess the quality of the network and the standards that you adhere to, Gareth, are, you know, again, it may cost slightly more in the short term, but you've got that, you know, income stream over a longer term. But also you've got a more robust network in the sense that you should hopefully have less maintenance issues, if I'm right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we tend not to have to really go out and do too many repairs on our networks because they're very robust.
Still a question from the audience. John, you prepared for me a question in case I wouldn't get any question coming from the guy on the call, but I won't use them today. That
fine.
one is about the advantage of using remote control tractors.
Yes. I'm looking forward to this one as well because I'm fascinated by them.
Well, yeah, a lot of rural Northumberland's very hilly. Obviously, it can be quite dangerous if you're rolling out fibre, you know, with any other machinery. So remote control, you can keep a good distance from the actual machine itself. If anything rolls, or you know, you can be well clear of it, and you know, our engineers can stay safe.
And I guess, Gareth, it must be really quite powerful. And again, going back to the slide when you had the, you know, the sort of the trees, and I imagine lots of roots. I guess, I mean, what sort of depth do they dig to? And you know, I guess they're pretty strong.
Yeah, so our plows do a depth of 600 mil. Yeah, so that's it. What we kind of yeah, it goes to 600 mil. Everywhere we plow though, a lot of the landowners, it's rural, sort of set aside land, so it's never going to be plowed over. It's never going to have crops on. So we're very fortunate that, you know, once the cable's in the ground, it's not going to be disturbed by anyone or anything.
And Gareth, another question. You've mentioned the quality of your relationship with the landowners, which obviously I think is a critical element, driver of your success. So I have a question related to how do you cultivate this relationship besides, you know, sharing the same local pub? What's the key factor which drives the quality of your relation with landowners?
A lot of our relationships started because we were an IT support provider originally. So Alncom's been in the community in the county since 1983. So all of our relationships with landowners have been built up over a long time. You know, we're at the point now where we can just, you know, pick up the phone and pop over, have a coffee with them, and iron stuff out. You know, there's no need for paperwork passing back and forward. We can go and sit down and just, you know, talk it through.
Yeah, so that's something which is very much linked to your to the founder background. It's not something you can replicate everywhere if you start a new business and try and do that in another part of the country.
Yeah, and unfortunately, yeah, I guess it would be quite hard to do it from scratch because it has taken a long time to get to this point. But
and
yeah,
are they, you know, are they more transactional reason besides the quality of your historical relation, which you could point, I mean, for our audience?
Yeah, so we always the key point, obviously, when working out away leave, what we normally do, especially in rural Northumberland, landowners tend to have, you know, properties spread out over a, you know, a vast area. What we tend to do is connect those properties and not charge charge a very small rental for them, a lot less than we would normally charge on a normal customer. And as part of that, that just forms the way lead. You know, the landowner gets a big benefit because they're getting fast internet to their rural properties, and we get a benefit that we get to use the land.
Okay,
It's quite intriguing.
Yeah, I think we have we still have a little bit of time. Is PIA imperative for rural builds, John or Gareth?
Well, Gareth, I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, I don't think so. Where we are in rural Northumberland, it's not a necessity. We use it because it's there, and it makes the build a lot quicker. So if we're installing our own infrastructure, obviously there's quite a time to it. It takes a lot longer to do. But by using PIA, it does quicken a build up. But if it wasn't there, it probably wouldn't be a huge miss. It would just add a little bit of time to the build.
I guess, Gareth, I'm guessing a bit here, but a lot of the PIA is more pole than duct type information because of the terrain.
Yeah, so in Northumberland, yeah, a lot of it is pole, and this is, we sort of changed our mentality, I guess, after Storm Arwen. because a lot of the poles did come down, and it took OpenReach about several months to put them back in. So we had to think quick on our feet to sort of to get around all that.
Yeah, the customer service, having customers off for several months wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, you wouldn't have customers.
Indeed.
Maybe last 2-3 questions, and I'm reading. I hope I understand the point. What is the input data, and what will be the forecast in the future demand?
Sorry.
I'm reading the question. I'm not sure to fully understand what is behind. Maybe you get it better than I do.
Maybe it's how you do your designs in the first place, Gareth. You're not bringing in information from other sources. You're doing it in the product. Is that?
Right. Yeah. So we've got our planning team. To be fair, they're very efficient at what they do. And we've started, obviously, when we used IQGeo. Really, we've built the design team, the planning team around IQGeo essentially. So they're all very efficient at what they do. So what we tend to do a full survey of where we're going to build, and then that's then put into IQGeo, and from there rolled out to engineers when we start building.
An interesting question I hear, especially for the FTTH Council viewpoint. I understand you started leveraging wireless technology, and you're now rolling out fiber fixed line. Why did you transition from one technology to another one? What advantages do you see in fixed line? Because of course, in terms of infrastructure, it's much heavier in investment. So what has been your journey towards full fiber from wireless solutions? Or do you still have wireless solutions?
We still have some wireless solutions. So obviously Alncom have been on quite a journey. We started as a computer game shop, and then when we started doing IT support, a lot of our customers, they were high net worth landowners in Northumberland who had a requirement for fast broadband. From there, we obviously got into the wireless, and then that kind of just sort of we figured, well, we're doing the wireless, why don't we connect a hamlet or a village? And the best way to do that is with obviously fiber. Because not everyone likes a dish on the side of the house, especially in a rural location, a hamlet or whatever, especially if they're peppered all over the place.
Okay, very good. Do you, and that one is for Gareth specifically, do you follow the dig once rule in the UK, or different ISP trench their own cable path? I think you kind of touched on it earlier, but could you specifically address that question?
So do we
follow the dig once rule in the UK, or are they, I would say, overbuilding activity in your region from several operators? I guess this is how I understand the question.
Yeah, to be fair, there is several operators in Northumberland. A lot of operators in Northumberland tend to stick to the towns, the big towns. No one really touches the really rural stuff because it's very hard. And if you're given an opportunity to take an easy route or a hard route, the majority of people take the easy route. Alncom are slightly different. We take the hard route. Because we're aware that, we live in a community ourselves, we live in the community where we build in, and we want to give everyone fast internet.
Okay, maybe last quick question. That one is more related to IQGeo support, not with the product itself, not with the solution itself, but with the training which goes with it. To what extent was there a lot of training requested, or how does the relation works in terms of training?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously did provide some training and so on, and the product is actually also well documented and quite intuitive. But Gareth, tell us about your experience of that.
Yeah, so at the start, we got training off IQGeo. a lot of the stuff, it's weird because you kind of, as you're designing and planning, you realize, it would be good if we could do this, it would be good if we could do that. And, you know, we've kind of worked with IQGeo to improve the platform we use to make it work for us. But yeah, training was, you know, it is available, and the documentation which is provided, very easy to follow, I guess.
Okay.
And I think that's a key thing for us as well, because customer success, so working with our customers on the journey that they're on, is a very important thing for us.
All right, I think we're reaching the top of the hour. I've got a very last question, Gareth. Do you still have time for computer gaming?
Not at all. The funny thing is, I've never been into computer games at all. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least we'll leave it on that note. There are a few questions we've not been able to address, so I'll forward them to John and Gareth, and I'm sure they will come back to you with answers if they have not been already answered by our question moderators active in the background. So I will just thank everyone for your participation, your attendance, your numerous questions. I hope you found this session insightful, and I hope to see you on our next webinar session in a few weeks. Thank you very much for your attention. Thanks to John and Gareth for their wonderful presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Vincent. Take care.